Thanks, Ashley, and thank you to everyone for joining us here this morning or this afternoon, depending upon your time zone. You can see the title of our webinar this morning is Introducing Project Connection for Autodesk Vault. And Project Connection is actually a product that we have developed here at Hagerman & Company that we're going to be demonstrating here this morning. This webinar, I think, is probably going to be, this one may be about 30 minutes or so, a little bit shorter than most of the other webinars I do. No, that's probably disappointing to everybody, but yeah, this one's going to be a little bit shorter. And we'll get in, we'll take a look at, give it an overview of the product, and then we'll get a look at it in action. For those of you who aren't that familiar with us, just one quick slide on our background. We've been around, actually it's going to be about 32 years in May that we've been around in business in the Autodesk world. You can see we've got offices throughout the states that are listed. We basically cover the entire United States with our work, and some out of the U.S. as well. 20 years doing data management with Autodesk Vault or similar products, 400 customer implementations, and we've been in the software development business as well for about 15 years now. And Project Connection is one of our latest products from our software development team. And all of our products are kind of in what we call our connection line. I guess that's maybe kind of our brand name. So just to touch on the others here, we've got our QVP connection software, which is a search view print tool that works with Autodesk Vault and other data management systems, and also just Windows Explorer for people like in maintenance, shop floor, sales, customer service, people who only need search view print. It's a very inexpensive, easy to use tool for them. AutoPlot Connection, which is our product for batch printing, plotting, and publishing. Lifecycle Connection, which is another one of our newer products that works specifically with Autodesk Vault lifecycles, which are like the document workflows built into Vault to add email notifications to those. So when somebody has a document they need to modify or to review and approve, they'll get an email notification on that, in your standard email system with a link to the document, so they're not having to always be checking in Vault to find that document. And then finally, the product that we're going to be focusing on here today, which is our Project Connection, which is designed for managing drawings and other files that relate to your engineering projects. Now, although Project Connection is not limited to these industries, it's really designed for asset-based process industries who do large plant projects, things like utilities and pipelines, steel and aluminum producers, oil and gas, chemicals and refining, food and beverage, pulp and paper, pharmaceuticals, large automotive assembly. Customers typically in these types of industries would be the prime prospects and have the prime need for our Project Connection, although people in other industries could have a need as well once you see this demonstrated. Now, for companies in those particular industries, some of the key needs there, and Project Connection addresses one of them, but I want to touch on the others as well. Of course, you need general document management, check in, check out, revision history, manage all types of files, workflows for reviews and approvals. Most companies in these industries or other industries in our customer base are CAD users, so you need a system that doesn't just manage Word documents or generic documents, but has all the special features needed for managing and integrating with CAD. In these particular industries, an easy 24/7 search view print interface is vital. In the process-based industries, Companies typically operate 24/7, so at 2 o'clock Sunday morning, if a piece of equipment breaks down, that maintenance guy's got to be able to find the documents to get it repaired, back up and going again, and do so safely. So an interface that makes it easy to type in equipment number, discipline, building, line, vendor, whatever they may know, and find those documents is important. And then collaborating with outside parties as well, where in most cases, companies in these industries do have a lot of their engineering work done by outside engineering firms, and then construction work done by outside contractors and construction firms. So the ability to easily collaborate and share files with those outside parties is important. Also, and we talked about these being asset-based industries, where there's a huge amount of investment tied up in the plant assets, and then there are drawings and other documents relating to those specific assets. The ability to link documents to the assets, and go to a piece of equipment and see all the documents that relate to it, or go to a document, see all the pieces of equipment that relate to it. And then, of course, what we're focusing on here this morning, support for engineering projects, so that you can keep a separation between the as-built that maintenance and operations need to access, and the project copies that your internal engineering staff and outside engineers or contractors need to access. So keep those documents separated, but linked together for historical purposes. And then also the ability for overlapping projects or concurrent engineering. So you may have a section of the plant that's actually being modified in two separate projects. Maybe there's a short-term maintenance project to make some kind of tweak to a piece of equipment, but then there's also maybe a plant rebuild, or a section of that plant is going to be rebuilt over maybe a 3 to 5 year project. So that same drawing could need to be assigned to two separate projects at the same time. So you need the ability to manage and track that kind of thing. Of course, Vault out of the box is based on a check-in, check-out functionality, which is great in a lot of cases and for a lot of industries. But in these types of industries, and maybe some in cases in discrete manufacturing, there are some serious limitations in that, well, the check-in, check-out is largely designed for discrete manufacturing. With the check-in, check-out system in Vault, for instance, we're talking about maintenance or shop floor people, or even sales, customer service, anyone who's read-only. You've got a couple of situations, probably neither of which are really what you want. Using the check-in, check-out system in Vault, depending on how you configure it, you've got two different options. One would be, your maintenance people or other shop floor people have access to see the incomplete, unapproved, or in-process drawings, which you typically don't want. Or you can configure it so that if a drawing is being revised, they can't see it at all. Well, really what you want is for the maintenance people to see the last released while the changes are going on someplace else they can't see. And that's what Project Connection is for. Now, you may have the same condition in discrete manufacturing, which Project Connection can be a fit for that, or also our QVP connection software can solve that for customers as well. Also then, limitations of the check-in, check-out system involve drawings can't be assigned to multiple projects like we talked about. You also can't maintain project archives, where in a lot of cases somebody might want to go back to the drawings that they received in for a project a couple of years ago. There's no good way to go back and find those in a project archive, and Project Connection will allow you to do that. The result is it's very difficult, is that projects really of this type really can't be managed in Vault, or you've just got a huge amount of manual file manipulation, which is really what you want to avoid with Vault, and can lead to a lot of errors, taking a lot of time, mistakes, that kind of thing. So Project Connection, what it looks like, those of you who are familiar with Vault, this should look just like the standard Vault user interface. You can see over here is the folder structure, which you can really set it up any way you want. But then our Project Connection commands are available on the standard right-click menu inside of Vault. And we've got our commands separated into parent copy commands. Well, the parent your as-built would really be like parent copies in Project Connection terms. So different commands to operate on your parent copies or as-built, and then your linked or project copy commands. And we'll drill down and take a look at what these commands do and see them in action in a demonstration as well. And then, for instance, here I'm in my as-built folder. You can see it's a little bit highlighted here. If I go to this particular as-built, it's all tracked in the Project Connection. So for this particular as-built, I can see the project copies that are linked or created or in process off of this as-built. So I've got a couple of projects going on here. Both of them are active projects. They're currently in the work in progress state. Of course, I can go to my project copies and see their parents, that kind of thing. You can see the properties that tell me whether it's an active parent, an active copy, or an inactive copy, which would be like a project that's done. I can also see up here my as-built is actually locked to the file in Project 3, so I've got it controlled, so it can only be updated right now from this Project 3, and I'll show you how that can be set and controlled. So the basic features, like we talked about, and you can see, allows for the separation of the as-built from the project copies. Also then, since they are folder structures, the access rights can be different. So your maintenance people would only have access rights to see what's in the as-built structure, whereas then your engineering people would have rights to see into and edit files in the project folder structure. And your engineering people would not have any edit rights in the as-built structure. They would always assign it to a project, work there, and then release it back. So it prevents those kinds of mistakes or inadvertent access. And we talked about one or more projects. Project copies can be created from an as-built. We saw how it maintains and manages the links, and then automatic updating of the as-built when the project is done. I'll show you that command in action. Some other features, the archive we talked about. So you can keep those project copies for completed projects online and available as long as you want for reference or archive purposes. You can always go back and look at them if needed. And we tried to develop this software to be as simple as possible by us having to write as little code as possible. So we just leveraged the Vault uses and where used tabs and those links and attachments. So we leveraged the Vault attachment functionality, and then we added some custom properties to Vault that enable us to manage and track the status of files. We really tried to keep this very simple and elegant software in terms of development. Also, a new feature we've added, which we think is a big one, I've talked about so far of taking a current as-built and assigning it to a project and changing it. But in a lot of cases, it may be new drawings or files are created in the project for the first time, and then when the project is done, they're released into that as-built structure for the first time. Well, we have new capabilities where that when you release those project copies, Project Connection can automatically assign the new as-builts to the correct folders automatically based on however you configure it in terms of the document category, location, building, line, discipline, vendor, equipment type, however you want to configure it. So we think that's a really nice feature to make sure that files get put into the right place so that maintenance and operations can browse and find them easily. Also, we've got full support for XREFs and hybrid files. So if a file you assign to a project has XREFs or a raster attachment to it, those files can go into the project folders if you wish, and then when it's released, those XREF and hybrid relationships all update properly as files move between the as-built and the project structure. And just to get an idea of the flow, so here we've got, my diagram here shows, this is my vault, and it's my as-built area. We've got a CAD file in there. It's at revision A. So we've got, depiction here showing our maintenance, operation, and construction people maybe accessing that file read-only from Vault. Well, now we've got an engineering project that starts that's going to need to make a revision. So using the create linked copy command in Project Connection, you can assign it to this project folder in Vault where your CAD users, engineering people can start accessing that file to make changes to it. They would not have security rights to change it over here in the as-built area. They can only make changes to it in the project area. Check in, check out, goes through the review and approval, and so on. And then when it's done, an authorized person would use the update parent copy command selected on this file here, and then Rev B of that as-built would then, at that point, when the project is done and the drawing is updated, at that point it becomes available for your maintenance and operations people. Now the concept of overlapping projects, we talked about that a little bit. So my red circles, they represent engineering projects and the area of a plant that's going to be impacted by a particular project. So we've got a project startup that impacts this area of the plant and all of its associated drawings. And then we get another smaller project. Maybe this is a short-term project, short-term fix, that just impacts this area. So the drawings that relate to pieces of equipment inside both circles would need to get assigned to both projects. Another project starts here, another one here, another in this area of the plant. Okay, now we've got another large project starting. This area of the plant is impacted by both, so the drawings and documents for this area would need to get assigned to both projects. So I think this kind of graphically shows the concept of overlapping projects. The flow for that, in terms of doing that with Project Connection, so you can see here's my as-built area, Project 1, Project 2, and the width and position of the two cylinders for Project 1 and Project 2 kind of relate to time, in that Project 1 starts here, well then Project 2 starts later on. It doesn't take very long and concludes while Project 1 carries on. So in terms of how that would be done with Project Connection, so we select this as-built, say create linked copy, put it in the Project 1 folder. It starts going through some changes. Then Project 2 starts up. So we want to take this as-built and assign it to Project 2. So we would do, so in this case, we're going to create linked copy and lock. So at this point, we're only going to allow the as-built to be updated from here. Now we could also have done create linked copy from the Project 1 folder and grab its work in process and put it into Project 2. So we could actually do it either way. So the Project 2 work is done, and then we would do update parent copy. And so now we've got Rev B of our as-built. But now the Project 1 copy is out of date. So then we can say update from parent and get this newly released revision B down in the Project 1 folder, complete it, and then update our parent copy and release it as revision C. So hopefully that gives you an idea of the concept of Project Connection. Now if we're to take a look at it in action in Vault, so you can see kind of a standard Vault structure here. My as-built structure, I didn't put much structure there. I mean, normally you probably have I want to keep this simple. Normally you probably have more folders and subfolders, how you'd logically like to break it down. And then I've got my project area. I've got projects 1 through 4 here going on. And then if I go to, say, this particular drawing, actually I'll go to drawing 3 here, you can see that it's an active parent. So that means it has project copies assigned to it. And in fact, if I go to my Where Used tab, I can see that this particular as-built, it's got 3 projects going on relating to it. And we can see the status of each one. They're all actually still active ongoing projects. For instance, if project 1 was completed, this would say inactive copy. You can see, and then you can see comments. It's telling us this project 2 copy was originally created from Rev A version 4 of the as-built. The project 4 copy was created from revision B version 6 of the as-built. So that's all tracked for you. And then if I look at this drawing 4, we can see its ongoing project copies, and we can also see that right now it's locked to project 1. So I can only update this as-built from the project 1 version. So that's a control feature that you can use if you wish. Now if I go to drawing 6, it doesn't have anything at this point. We want to do a little demo relating to it. So if I right-click, there's my Project Connection menu, and you can see we've got things divided into parent copy commands and linked copy commands. We named our things a little bit more generically, where the parent copies would typically be your as-built, your linked copies would be your project copies. So my parent copy commands would be create linked copy and lock. If I had locked my parent copy, I can always come back and unlock it if I wish to. Those would be the main commands. So I need to assign drawing 6 to an engineering project. I can go in, I can say this needs to be assigned to project 4. And then we've got, you've seen those names there. So you've got the ability to automatically rename your project copies with prefixes and or suffixes. So now you can see my project 4 copy has been created, and then it goes into a work in progress state automatically, and it tells me what rev and version of the file it was created from. Now let's say we've got some concurrent engineering going on here. So I also need to assign this and actually I misnamed my files there. So now you can see it's now locked to the project 2 copy. And now if I want to work on this file, using the standard Vault functions, I can say go to folder. Now I'm into that project folder. I can just double click on it, check it out. And I'm just going to make a simple change. We don't really care that much about a CAD demo here. So I'm just going to make a very simple change to illustrate the process. So I've made a change. Now I can check this file back into Vault. Of course, it's going to update my DWF visualization for me. So then if I go back to Vault, you see my DWF has been updated with the additional hole added. This file is still sitting in work in progress, and here I can see the as-built that it relates to. So kind of like I showed in the demonstration, and we can now use the standard Vault change state or lifecycle functionality. I can send it for review. And again, with our lifecycle connection software, whoever my manager is, we get email notification that they've got something to review. So now this file is sitting in the review state. Or I can see that up here. So if I'm the manager then, I can review it. And if it looks good, I can go ahead and say, release it. And then this could all send an email notification to the project manager. At that point, they would know then that the as-built can be updated. So right now, here's my project copy. It's been released. Here's my as-built. It's always released and available for my maintenance people. It's at revision B. Now using Project Connection, we can say release as new parent revision. And voila, our as-built has gone to revision B. And then if we go to it and view it, it would now match what we did in that, that little editing session. Now, drawing 6, my as-built, it's still locked to the project 2 copy. If we're done with that project, we can now, of course, unlock it. So then it would be available to be updated from my project 4 copy. So that's a kind of a simple workflow there, showing the kind of, hopefully that shows kind of the basic essence of the software. So we looked at, so far we looked at create linked copy and lock. We saw the unlock, the lock parent copy. We can quickly see that. So if we said lock parent copy, and went back here, it would now be locked by that project's copy. So lock, unlock parent copy, releases new, parent revision. Create parent copy and create parent copy and lock would be for cases where there wasn't an as-built assigned to a project, a new drawing or other file was created for the project. These commands would then take the project copy and create the linked as-built. And again, like we talked about, our software can automatically put the as-built into the correct folder. We also have some commands here. If for instance you didn't get this done at the beginning, so I've got an as-built here and I've got a project copy here, but I didn't use the project connection commands to link them. The assign as parent copy, assign as linked copy can build the links from two separate files that already exist. We've also got protection built into the software so that if it looks at the as-built, and if the as-built is actually newer than the project copy, it won't allow you to do release revision. So confirm as current. If you then did confirm as current on the project copy, then you would be able to release it. But that's a protection to keep from updating an as-built from something that's outdated. So we've tried to work all the different scenarios and possibilities into our software so that they're all covered. So hopefully that gives everyone an idea of what the project connection software looks like, what it does. And we tried to make it simple, but really solve a major problem for asset-based industries. So just the workflow we didn't look at graphically was, for a new drawing where there's not an as-built already, the new drawing is actually created in the project area. So that would be the releases new parent option to then put it into the as-built folder. And just a little bit bigger screenshot of all the different commands that are available. And then other related software that we really won't be covering here that are typically critical to companies in these types of industries, or also discrete or other industries as well. The Vault data transfer utility, if you're coming off an older data management system and want to migrate to Vault, Autodesk has their data transfer utility, which we use on projects to migrate over your existing files, the properties related to those files, revision histories, those kinds of things. The Vault data standard allows you to create custom property pages for each file. So you've got a custom property page with type-in fields or drop-down lists to view and edit, vendor, project number, equipment type, discipline, building, line, whatever properties you want to associate to files to make those forms. QVP connection for your maintenance people to have a form to be able to search and retrieve documents for viewing or printing based on those properties. And then Autodesk Buzzsaw, which is for cloud-based collaboration with outside engineering firms and contractors. So those software packages can also be part of the solution set along with Project Connection for companies in these industries and other industries as well. So that all of these key needs that we talked about earlier are met. That's pretty much all I had down to show here this morning. So at this point, we can open things up for questions. I think we may have, not there already, maybe just one. We've got a couple questions here, which I'll answer, and at this point, people would be able to type in other questions as well. First question I see is, can the maintenance people tell if a file is in a project for revision? And you'd actually see that here with the file status, where you can see it is the HPC file status where it shows active parent. That means that it is assigned to a project. So that is available through the properties. Next one, what about drawings with XREFs? Yeah, we have specifically, that was actually somewhat of a challenge with the software in that, so if you have an as-built file that has an XREF or a raster scanned attachment, and you assign both the parent and the child to a project, when they go into the project folder, the parent now needs to point to the child that's in the project folder. Or if a child file didn't come with it, it stayed in the as-built area, the reference would stay there. And then the opposite thing would happen when it got released. So we've written the software so that it handles all that and properly updates the references as files move between the as-built structure and the project structure. What version of Vault is required for this product? Right now we're supporting Vault versions 2015, 2015 R2, and 2016. But the software, because of the limitations in it, does not work with Vault Basic. You would need to have Vault Workgroup or Vault Professional. Another question is, Project Connection available on a licensed network? The way the software is licensed, you would need to buy, so if you have 10 Vault Professionals, you would need to buy 10 project connections. And essentially, since your Vault licenses float, essentially that allows your project connection licenses to float as well. So it's sold, we sell the software in a 1-to-1 ratio based on the total number of Vault Workgroup, Professional, or Office licenses you have. Project Connection will work with Vault Office as well, which is Vault Office is an option for Vault Workgroup and Professional for your non-CAD users. Any other questions? We'll hold it open for more questions for another minute or two. While we're waiting on that, Ashley, do you have any wrap-up information on your end?
Well, I will just say that if you guys think of questions later that you won't have for Matt, you can simply reply to that GoToWebinar email you received, and we can get those to him. It does look like another one might have popped up in there, Matt.
Yeah, about numbering systems available. Of course, with Vault Workgroup and Vault Professional, you have the ability to create automatic file naming and numbering schemes there. And then, so Project Connection would work with those, or then you can see when you take a file and assign it to a project folder, you have the ability to add prefixes and or suffixes to whatever the current file name is. So it would work with the vault auto naming and numbering sequences on new or existing files, and then have the ability to apply the prefixes on creation of the project copy. And those, as you can see, those are manually, the prefixes and suffixes are manually typed in as of now. And then whatever prefix and or suffix you used on the last file, that stays as the default for the next file. And I think that's it. So Ashley, if you want to go ahead and sign us off,
Sure.
I think that'd be good.
Once again, if you could take a few moments to answer the survey, we would appreciate it. It will automatically appear when you close down the session. And otherwise, thanks for attending today's webcast and have a great day.